The man John Sturgis hired to keep an eye on the reality was C. Wallace Floody. He was one of the key conspirators in the planning and preparations for the real escape and was nicknamed the Tunnel King. He spent 12 weeks in Germany helping everyone involved with the production of The Great Escape get it right.
His schedule was full 12 hours a day. For example, the art director would take him and put him in the tunnel set, and he'd roll around and he would say, it's a little too big, because I remember I wasn't quite that comfortable. We were about 2 days away from starting to shoot, and Wally and I had dinner together, and he said, let me tell you something, everybody's doing it right. And I said, what makes you think that? And he said, I had terrible nightmares last night. So I know that we're getting back to reality.
Tunnels were wonderful because it was a big stage at Geiselgastei. They ran the entire length of the studio and just with one side cut open. So it was a silly-looking set. I mean, it was mostly construction that you saw, but when you got close, you just saw into the tunnel with one side. And that meant that people could go flying through the tunnel on the little trolley cars with the camera hurtling alongside it.
Forward, hard!
Sturgis may have been able to build a complete replica of Stalag Luft 3 and find a dream cast.
What is it? Well, they're celebrating the revolution. It's the 4th of July.
But major problems with the script almost sank the project before it started. With 6 writers and 11 versions of the script, Sturgis found himself improvising on a daily basis.
We never really did get a complete screenplay. It just couldn't be done. It had to be, I won't say invented, but it had to be put down as it went along. And a great part of it was done as we shot. I'm not proposing that's a good way to make a movie, but it's the right way to make this one.
Shooting without a finished script was particularly difficult for Steve McQueen, who was not satisfied with his part or his director's promises.
We got to Germany and they started filming, and Steve's part still was not defined. I mean, they really didn't know. They got a little bit here and a little bit there, but nothing to say, that's a Steve McQueen movie, sort of thing, you know? And then when Jimmy Garner started filming, and he had his white T-shirt and his cap, and Steve saw that, he said, listen, I'm not going to work unless they fix my part.
John Sturgis, perhaps rather foolishly, showed a rough cut of the first 6 weeks of shooting, and Steve McQueen walked out and insisted that his part be rewritten. So this was all new to me. I hadn't realized things like this go on in Hollywood. Being a little obedient English actor from the theatre mostly. And so they sent for, I think 2 or 3 scriptwriters flew out from Hollywood, and we stopped shooting on Steve, and somebody would come through a door and we would stop shooting the scene because we didn't know who was going to come through the door, because these guys typing away on the typewriters all day long, we thought it's obviously going to be not Steve McQueen, but some totally different. Well, after 6 weeks, we recommenced shooting on Steve McQueen, and who came through the door but Steve McQueen, saying more or less the same lines.
Coburn and I and Steve went over to my place in Munich, and we sat down and we said, well, what's your problem, Steve? You know. And it turns out, after a few hours of talking about it, Steve wanted to be the hero, but he didn't want to do anything heroic. And there were a lot of things that Steve, you know, was going to do in the picture to make him a hero, and he didn't like to do those things. He thought they were corny. So what happened was, we told him he was a hero. If you remember, he leaves, he escapes by himself. They capture him, but he brings back all the information that we need for the escape. And so he becomes a hero in that respect. But that's really what he wanted, and it was really strange. We talked him into it, Coburn and I, pretty much.
Nothing made Steve McQueen more of a hero than that famous motorcycle chase. McQueen and motorcycle dealer Bud Eakins were already racing buddies when McQueen was cast in The Great Escape.
One day he come in and says, I'd like to go to Germany with me and double me riding a motorcycle. I says, yeah, sure, Steve. didn't think anything of it. And he says, calls up one day and says, you got a suit? And I says, yeah. And he says, well, get it on, we're going to meet the director. So we go down and we meet John Sturgis, and met John, and John looks at me and nods his head, yeah, which means I would be a good double for him. And it happened. In 2 weeks, we were in Munich.
Eakins and McQueen eventually worked out the details of the chase, which was not in the original script. It began at the checkpoint when Hiltz is challenged by a German officer.
Steve's ability on a motorcycle was enormous. If you look real closely, a lot of the Germans chasing Steve are Steve. We would just do the old Western trick of having Steve take over the hill, jump the hill, run down the gully, and then he'd run and change uniforms and put on goggles and a helmet, and he would be the German chasing him.
He was a good rider. He was quick, but he'd have to go do his movies and not race for 3 to 6 months. But he'd always take a bike with him, but he was quick, you know?
For many years, audiences assumed that Steve McQueen actually jumped the wire on the Swiss border, but insurance regulations forced him to let Bud Eakins be the daredevil.
Sturgis asked me one day, he says, if we had a fence, could you jump over it? And I says, well, yeah. And he says, well, how high of a fence could you jump over? And we got it where the wheels of the motorcycle were 12 feet off the ground and jumping about 65 feet. And so come time to do it, and the adrenaline got going, and I hit it about 60 miles an hour. And it really went up in the air, and I can remember being in the air, and there was dead silence. I mean, there was a few hundred people there, you know, all the extras and everything. And when I was in the air, it seemed like I was up there forever, and it was dead silence. Nothing. Just going through the wind, and boom, it hit the ground, and it shook, and I almost fell off.
Editor Ferris Webster was nominated for an Oscar for cutting sequences like this, in which it appears that McQueen is making the jump. That's McQueen. That's Eakins. That's McQueen. And finally, that's Eakins.
In order to make all that barbed wire, when anybody was sitting in the camp with time to spare, we were handed this rubber, like string, and you wrapped a little piece of rubber around it every 6 inches to make the barbs. That entire fence was made by the entire company in their spare time.
Trains also played an important part in The Great Escape, as they did in the real event. The Zagan train station was less than a mile from the camp. That station was duplicated a short distance from the Bavaria studios, and German railroad officials provided the train.
I said, you know, we'd like to get on a train and run. They said, okay. What train would you like? And I said, well, you know, if we had our druthers, we'd like to run between Munich and Stuttgart, which is their busiest line. I said, that's okay. So we bought 2 cars and then 1 flat car to put the Chapman crane on.
We were filming on that train with existing trains going down that line. And we had sometimes, we cleared by a minute, you know, and get on a siding by the time that other one's coming through. And we were sitting on tenterhooks a few times. Gosh, I hope we can get off on the siding before that train comes through. It was a little scary.
So we have the Chapman crane way out for Garner and Pleasense to jump. And the guy steps up to me and says, if I was you, I would pull that thing back in, because we're about to come to a concrete pole in about 40 seconds. I said, bring the arm in. So we bring the arm back in with 3 guys on it, and this thing whisks by.
It's one of those great moments of your life when you're up for the part, you get the part, you do the part, you wait while they put it together, and you get to go into a cinema and sit down and watch it. And the lights go down, and what is so wonderful about this film is the music. I mean, Elmer Bernstein's music just away you go, and the trucks run. I mean, it was just, oh, wow. I mean, it doesn't often happen like that.
The Great Escape is more than one of history's great war dramas. For many of the generation born after 1945, this was the film that introduced them to World War II. It not only entertained on a spectacular level, but it also explained how our side eventually won the war.
You know, why The Great Escape was The Great Escape was because it was D-Day, and they were trying to divert as many troops away from D-Day from the as they could. And it really worked. They diverted over 1 million troops away from that landing.